The movie kicks off with a drug cartel boss arriving at a private airport. A bunch of heavily armed guards escort him to his luxurious mansion. Feeling relaxed, he changes into his swimwear and takes a dip in his private pool. While swimming, he notices his watch lying at the bottom and dives to grab it. But before he can resurface, an unknown assassin grabs him and holds him underwater until he drowns. The assassin, Arthur Bishop, uses the chaos that follows to slip away. He carefully makes his way out of the mansion and escapes by jumping into a nearby river. Bishop isn't just any hitman, he's one of the best. Precision is his game, and he never leaves a job unfinished. Every move he makes is planned to perfection. Back at his place, Bishop meets up with his only friend and mentor, Harry McKenna. Harry is a well-known businessman and also a client who has hired Bishop for jobs before. Over time, they've developed a close friendship. During their chat, Harry complains about his son, Steve, and expresses his frustration with him. After a bit of conversation, they part ways, with Harry paying Bishop for his latest job in Colombia. When Bishop checks his next assignment, he's shocked to see that the target is none other than Harry. Confused, he contacts his employer to confirm if it's a mistake, but they assure him it's real. He asks for a face-to-face meeting to discuss it further. A private jet picks him up and takes him to meet Dean, Harry's business partner. Dean explains that a mission in South Africa 6 months ago went horribly wrong, resulting in 6 assassins from their agency being killed. The only people who knew about the job were Dean and Harry. Dean accuses Harry of selling out for a huge sum of money. Bishop isn't fully convinced and asks if there's another way to handle this without killing Harry. Dean shuts that idea down immediately and gives Bishop 48 hours to complete the job, warning that someone else will do it if he doesn't. Although Bishop believes Harry is guilty, he still wants to hear it from him directly. He tricks Harry into coming down to the parking lot, where he's waiting. Instead of getting angry, Harry just smiles, knowing what's about to happen. Bishop suggests they run away together, but Harry knows that wouldn't work. Dean would just send someone else after them. Without hesitation, Harry hands Bishop his old and used gun and tells him to get it over with. Bishop pulls the trigger multiple times, killing him. He makes it look like a carjacking gone wrong and leaves the scene. At Harry's funeral, Bishop meets Steve, who is determined to take revenge on whoever killed his father. Bishop drives him home, and Steve reveals his plan to hunt down and kill the carjacker responsible. When Bishop asks if that will make him feel better, Steve simply responds, "Guess I'll find out." Later that night, Steve sets a trap for a car thief waiting in his car. When a man attempts to steal it, Steve launches a brutal attack, beating him mercilessly. Bishop, who had been secretly following him, intervenes before Steve goes too far. The next day, Steve follows Bishop and asks him to train him as a hitman. At first, Bishop refuses, telling him to go home. But guilt weighs on him. After all, he's the reason Steve's father is dead. He also knows that if he doesn't guide Steve, the kid might destroy himself. The following day, Bishop changes his mind and agrees to train Steve. They meet up, and as a weird kind of lesson, they adopt a puppy. Bishop instructs Steve on how to take care of it and insists he take the dog to the same coffee shop every day. Meanwhile, he begins training Steve in the art of assassination. Steve is eager to learn and wants to absorb everything Bishop knows. As training intensifies, Bishop decides it's time for Steve to experience his first real contract. They take out a target by making it look like an autoerotic asphyxiation accident. Bishop then explains that the man they just killed was a notorious arms dealer who sold weapons to criminals worldwide. Next, Bishop introduces Steve to a new target, Burke, an assassin from a rival agency. Coincidentally, Burke frequently visits the same coffee shop where Steve has been going with his dog. Bishop explains that Burke has 2 weaknesses, a love for younger men and small dogs, making Steve and the puppy the perfect bait. One day, Burke approaches Steve and invites him for drinks. Bishop instructs Steve to spike Burke's drink with a dangerous dose of Rohypnol to ensure a quick, clean kill. But Steve decides to ignore the easy way out and chooses to handle it on his own. He convinces Burke to take him home, and once they're alone, he tries to strangle him with a belt. However, Burke is much stronger than Steve anticipated, leading to a brutal fight. After a long struggle, Steve finally kills him, but not without suffering serious injuries. Although the job is done, Bishop is furious. It was supposed to be quick and clean. Later, Dean contacts Bishop, annoyed that Steve was used in the Burke mission. Bishop pushes back, reminding him that the job came through Harry, not him. That's when Dean drops a bombshell question. Does Steve know you're the one who killed his father? Dean, clearly annoyed by Bishop's attitude, warns him that he's running out of chances. Not long after, Bishop gets another job. This time, he's got to take out Andrew, the head of a weird, cult-like church. The plan? Make it look like a natural heart attack. Bishop and Steve decide to inject Andrew with adrenaline to trigger one. That way, when paramedics arrive, they'll unknowingly give him another dose, one that'll finish the job. As they sneak around Andrew's hotel room, setting everything up, a doctor arrives. This guy is used to giving Andrew different drugs, but today, Andrew wants something new. Problem is, whatever this doctor gives him could cancel out the adrenaline trick. So, they need to switch plans fast. Right after the doctor administers the dose, he gets a phone call and leaves, leaving Andrew alone. Bishop and Steve don't waste a second. They emerge from their hiding spots, suffocate Andrew, and slip back into the walls. When Andrew's men find him dead, they assume it's another overdose, something he was known for. But security isn't taking any chances, so they search the room. Eventually, they find Bishop and Steve, forcing them into a shootout. After a wild escape, they manage to flee the building as it goes into lockdown. Bishop tells Steve they need to split up and meet later. While waiting at the airport, Bishop spots a familiar face, one of the supposed dead assassins from the South African mission. Curious, he follows the guy, hoping to figure out what's going on. After a tense confrontation, Bishop realizes Dean had set him up. Dean was behind the botched South Africa mission and tricked him into killing Harry to cover his own tracks. Realizing the betrayal, Bishop has no choice but to fight. The assassin tries to take him out, but Bishop manages to win barely. Furious, he decides it's time for payback. On his way home, Bishop is ambushed by more hitmen. He takes them all out and grabs one of their phones, using it to track who sent them. Sure enough, it leads straight to Dean. He's put out a hit on Bishop. Bishop rushes home and calls Steve. Turns out, Steve was attacked too. Steve asks Bishop to hurry back, but Bishop realizes it's a trap. Steve is surrounded. Thinking fast, Bishop tells him about a gun hidden under the couch. Steve grabs it and takes out the assassins. Once Bishop arrives, he tells Steve to start prepping for their next move while he figures out how to get to Dean. As Steve gathers supplies, he stumbles upon his dad's old gun. That's when it hits him. Bishop was the one who killed Harry, not some random carjacker. Meanwhile, Bishop tracks down one of Dean's longtime associates. The guy refuses to talk, even when Bishop threatens him. But when Bishop grabs the man's daughter and pretends he's about to throw her into a garbage disposal, the terrified father spills everything. He gives up Dean's location. With the intel in hand, Bishop and Steve head to Dean's hideout. As soon as Dean realizes Bishop is inside the building, he gathers his security team and tries to escape. But Bishop and Steve are waiting outside. The second Dean's car pulls out, they open fire. Dean's vehicle crashes, leaving him badly wounded. Without hesitation, Bishop and Steve finish him off for good. Later, as they drive away, Steve asks Bishop what their next move is. Bishop tells him they need new identities and a fresh start somewhere far away. They decide to stop at a gas station for a break. As they pull in, Bishop notices Steve holding his dad's gun. He immediately knows Steve has figured everything out. Steve steps out to pump gas and asks Bishop if he needs anything. Bishop declines. As Steve fills the tank, he secretly rigs the nozzle so that fuel spills all over the ground beneath the car. Then, he casually walks away, pulls out his father's gun, and shoots the gas, setting off a massive explosion. Thinking he's finally avenged his dad, Steve heads back to Bishop's house. He plays a recording on a record player, then goes to the garage and takes Bishop's prized 1966 Jaguar E-Type. As he drives off, he notices a note on the seat. It reads, "If you're reading this, you're already dead." Steve barely has time to react before the car explodes, killing him instantly. Back at the house, the record player finishes and triggers an electrical wire, setting the house on fire. Meanwhile, security footage of the gas station reveals the truth. Bishop had slipped out of the car just in time. He watches the flames from a distance, then walks to another car he had stashed nearby. With that, Bishop drives off into the distance, vanishing once again. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a like to support the channel.